Our speaker is hovering stage left. Let me quickly read to you her introduction so you will be dutifully impressed. Janifer Wheeler is known as the joyful badass whisperer. The topic is going to be take this job and love it. 5 steps to finding your joy factor. After 25 years in both the public and corporate classroom, Janifer fully embraced her own badassery, love it, and became an entrepreneur by combining many years of experience in business growth and development along with a deep knowledge of teaching, learning, and curriculum design. She created a business that integrates with her highest values: freedom, personal development, and empowering others. That's her joy factor. Let's give a wonderful welcome to Janifer Wheeler.
Hi, good morning.
Joyful Janifer.
The joyful Janifer, here I am. And on a Friday, when it poured down rain last night and it turned out beautiful, and I did leave my car window open last night, so I had a little toweling off to do before I got here. But you know what? We're here, and we're going to figure out what is going to bring us joy and use that information to hone in on your job search, perhaps in a different way than you have been doing before. If you do not have this yellow handout, please let me know. It is your note-taking guide. Obviously, you can do that in a notebook or journal if you usually bring one, but if you need this note-taking guide, I'm happy to make sure that you get one.
I need one, and if you want, I'll take it.
Thank you, that'd be great. Thank you, Kathy. So as Kathy said, I am the joyful badass whisperer, and what that really means is that I help people, teams, organizations. I do not limit myself to just individuals, but I help people find their joy factor, which is the equivalent of your zone of genius, so that you can take your own personal badassery out into the world and be successful in the way that works for you, because that's really important, to define your own personal meaning of success. Comparing ourselves to other people, playing around with all those you shoulds. You should do what's exactly best for you. So that's a lot of what we'll talk about today. I'm very much about growth mindset, being self-aware, finding your own inner voice and power, and using it for your good as well as the good of others. So, what's a joy factor? Sorry, this picture is a bit distorted, but I think you get the general sense of what is she talking about? I'm sure some of you have heard of Marie Kondo, where she says if your things don't spark joy, you should get rid of them, right? Pile all your stuff up, go through it. If it doesn't feel joyful, then you know you need to get rid of it. I teach and train in a similar way, but we look at our tasks. So we're looking at all the things that we do and determining whether or not they bring us joy. Now, that is not the same as happiness, and we will cover that as we get a little further in to the presentation. Joy is what lights you up. Joy is what makes you want to get up and do that with no hesitation. Joy prevents procrastination. Joy, knowing your joy, helps you prevent procrastination. And we'll talk about that a little bit more too. So, what brings me joy? I love writing in my journal. I love watercoloring. And this particular picture is from my journal. And these are lyrics from a song that a really good friend of mine wrote and performed in a band here in Austin called Calliope Musicals. That is a very joyful experience. It's very much a performance. And one of her songs is, I will not fear this body, I will not doubt its power. And I share this with you because I'm just going to use one should. You should not fear your own power. Because we have it. We all have it. And it's irrelevant to some degree what package it's in, because it's the skills, the gifts, the talents, and the strengths that we possess, that we use to be our best and most badass selves in the world. Here's a couple other pictures of things that bring me joy. I traveled a couple years ago to Ireland and had Irish tea for the very first time. It was so delightful and so fabulous. And I'm from the South, and I'm from the deep South. I'm from Georgia. You do not put milk in tea, ever. They would take your "you're from the South" card and say, "Honey, bless your heart," and you'd have to go, because you do not put milk in tea in Macon, Georgia. But you do in Ireland, and you do in Round Rock, Texas, too, when you order it online and have it delivered to your house and make it reproduce it. So when I need a little boost of joy and I don't have time for, like, you know, a parasailing trip or an amazing camping trip or maybe all these places that we like to go to, then I can have some tea. And that feels like a little bit of a, you know, a reward or some joy. Now, joy at work. People are entitled to joy at work. People are entitled to joy at work. And here I am with some of my work. One of the things that brings me a great deal of joy in my own work is teaching and training and empowering others. In this particular workshop, we had been working on limiting beliefs, and we used Legos to express the multitude of gifts, skills, and talents that we possess that we can then rearrange in a variety of ways to achieve our goals. Because we all have great things about us. Whether you believe it or not, you do. And I also created a game. So one of the things that brings me joy in work is creativity. Finding different ways to do the same thing. So those are my joyful work types of things. And I told you we'd talk a bit about the difference between joy and happiness. Joy is the result of your own inner peace and satisfaction. It is internal. There are some moral attributes to it. When you are working in your joy, there is supreme satisfaction. And it's more consistent and more long-lasting. Happiness is external forces that bring satisfaction to us. So joy is coming from ourselves, our own inner peace and satisfaction. Happiness is from external forces. There's sometimes a more materialistic attribute to it, not always, but there can be. And of course, if you're having happy experiences, you may be doing more bonding or whatnot, but I find that when I'm operating in my joy, it is really beneficial to the relationships around me because I'm in a better state of mind. Maybe I may not necessarily be happy, but I'm definitely more positive. I'm in a more positive state of mind. Obstacles and situations are a bit easier to handle because I'm just simply more self-aware of what I need and how I need to do it. And then also, happiness is not consistent. Just think about your own lives. You can be happy in a moment and then get a phone call and you, in 5 minutes, 180. Because it's an external factor. And we can't control all those external factors, but we can control our own joy. We can control that once we know what it is. Okay, so I told you I'd offer you some tips. Here we go. First tip, connect to your values. What do you always have time and money for? In this photo, I'm with my family, and we are in Grand Cayman at a turtle sanctuary from one of the stops on a cruise that we took. And I always have time and money for traveling, especially to places that I've never been or that I've always dreamed of going. I will find the time and the money to make that happen. I also love to read. I will find the time and money to make that happen. So I want you to think about, where do you always have time and money? And on your handout, the front sheet, the yellow sheet, you've got some boxes. And you can write this information in those boxes. So take a couple minutes to brainstorm a list, and don't overthink it. It's not necessary to go super, super deep. It's really just an exercise so you can see how this can work for you. But just think about where you always find time and money. And there's two different columns. So put the time on one side and the money on the other side. I promise the teacher in me has a reason for all of this. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. Take a look at your values. Take a look at the two things that you always seem to have time and money for. Now, obviously, this can go a whole lot deeper, but for our purposes today, we're just going to focus on time and money. Do you notice the same thing in the two columns? Do you see any similarities or like a couple of things that you always have time and money for? Does anybody want to share that? You don't feel like you have to, but if you would like to share it, I would love to hear it.
I put the basics down: eat and sleep.
Eat and sleep. I always have time for food, and I always have time for sleeping. Yeah, those are pretty good values there.
Custom car work.
I'm sorry?
Custom car work.
Custom car work. You're doing it or you're doing it. Okay, so you're always doing that. Anybody else? Sure.
Reading books.
Reading books. Same. Yes, ma'am.
Friends.
I'm sorry?
Friends.
Friends. Always have time and money for friends. So you can even put these into kind of categories in that our first gentleman said sleep and eat. Those are self-care things. I mean, if you don't sleep and you don't eat, you're not going to stay alive. So that is definitely taking care of yourself. All right? Your friends, that can be your support team. So time and money with them is also valuable. Hobbies, projects, talking about custom car care could also be your business, but in addition, it can be a hobby. So those are things that you value. Values are important. They help you really understand yourself. And when I did this really in a deep, deep way, I was almost surprised. I thought I knew, and then I did a deeper dive into it, and it's like, wow, I really didn't. I mean, I thought I did, but I didn't realize. Really, my core value is freedom. The freedom to design my day the way I want to, the freedom to do the work that I want to do, the freedom to travel when I want to travel. And many times what you value comes from what you previously lacked. And when I was a kid, my dad was a pastor, so we moved all the time. And because of his role, I had to basically play a part. Because I'm in the public, it's a very small public, but still, it was a fishbowl. And so I think now as an adult, the reason I value freedom so much is because I didn't feel like I had very much when I was growing up. So just know that sometimes what you turn out to value can be based on something that you lack. And therefore, your values can change, because if you fill that void, something could be replaced with it. But it's just so interesting to me to think and work in those arenas. The second tip is to align your energy. So where are you investing energy? So just think about the second section of boxes is a place where you can make notes around that. So where are you investing energy at home? And where are you investing energy in work tasks and activities? Now, obviously, you're right now doing some job searching. So in my view, that would be your work items. So if you want to look at it from that point of view, you can. Or you can think about either the best or worst job you ever had and what you did there. We're not putting any feelings or thoughts around these things right now. We're just simply making a list of just a few things that you do at home and work where you are investing energy. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Now I want you to look at my things didn't translate, but analyze the list. So what brings you joy? Put a little heart by what brings you joy. And then put a $ by anything on those two lists that could also bring you money. So if it was a job skill, that might bring you money. If it's something at home that you might do from home that brings you money. But anything that brings you joy gets a heart. Anything that brings you money gets a $. And then we want to look at what is on that list that has both. Okay, so how does knowing this information lead you to your joy factor? What does this even mean? If it brings you, what we're going to look at now is the connection between your values, your joy, and your potential income. So when you reveal these connections, so first we're connecting with our values, we're aligning our energy, and now we're looking at the revelation or the revealing of connections. So what are the connections between your values, your joy, and your income? So on the back of your yellow handout, there is this diagram. If you want to use it, obviously you don't have to, but you can just visually look at where you have joy. So for me, I have joy in creating and designing training materials. I really love that. That's the teacher in me. I loved that when I was a classroom teacher. And now I have no parent meetings. They gave me very little joy. I liked talking to the people, but the things you have to talk about are not always joyful. And when you have teacher parent meeting day and you have to meet with 23 people in one day, there's no joy in that whatsoever, like zero. You can't even, it's hard to even get a bathroom break in there, no joy. But it brings me money, right? So designing lesson plans and training, it brings me joy and money. So that would go in the middle for me. That's my zone of genius. Because I can write curriculum and I can get paid for it. Now, if you're thinking about in a corporate, okay, and I did this as a teacher, so it's not like there's no jobs. I can only do that as an entrepreneur. And the same is true for you. When you think about skills that you bring to the table, that you negotiate income around, or you are being paid for, that is a potential for your zone of genius. So as we are thinking about our job searches, how can you use this information to help you? And we'll get to that nearer to the end. So did anybody have any connections that they'd like to share? Anything interesting that they discovered about where they see a connection between joy and money? For themselves, where like you've kind of seen a little glimpse into your own zone of genius? Yeah?
Custom car work.
Custom car work. I'm guessing that if you're interested in custom car work, you should have a chat with this fellow in the back. Anybody else want to share? Yes, ma'am.
My background is in interior design, and I haven't done it for a while professionally, but I brought out my Halloween, the light decorations yesterday. It just brought me a lot of joy, and I do have a staging company, but I'm not involved because I don't have the capital. Anyway, that got both of those.
Okay, so it might be worth some time for you to think about, because that's bringing you joy, and it can bring you income. And clearly it's a zone of genius. So these kinds of revelations may help you even say, wow, maybe this is not even an industry that I want to stay in. Because I see your name tag says recruiter, but you're telling me what brings you joy is interior design. Renee might have a few things to think about. Right? Because if she also finds joy in recruiting, but yet she also finds joy in interior design, maybe they don't naturally meet, but that doesn't mean she can't develop both aspects of that. That doesn't mean that she can't sit down and figure out a way where they might meet. Right? You just don't know. The possibilities for you are limited only to your own imagination and effort. So 4, empower yourself with your strengths. Please don't focus on your weaknesses. If any of you have ever done Strengths Finders, and if you haven't, it's a really great tool that helps you know more about that process. Is like everybody is born with 34 strengths, but they all show up in a different way to make you unique. And think about your strengths. Use those. Use those in your job search. Use those as keywords. And you've got a little word search that's the Joyful Badass word search. So if you're thinking, I don't know what I could say about myself, I don't know how I could empower myself with some positive language, that word search has a lot of badass words for you. You pick some, you own those, you take them with you. Now the last thing is strategies. Okay, so we've learned all this information. Now what are we going to do with it? How can you use your joy factor to manifest your next bold career move? Make a plan. Use this information. If you now know what brings you joy and money and you are not actively pursuing that, that could be worth your time to think about a little bit more. Brainstorm some verbiage that goes around your zone of genius. How could you use those keywords to search, to put into your resume, to look for roles that will bring you joy? Because, like I told the group at Higher Texas a few weeks ago, if you just take the first job you get without thinking about it, without really analyzing it, is this aligned? Do aspects of this bring me joy? Am I going to really be successful in the way that you think success is in this organization? If you just settle, I will sadly see you here again. And that's happened to me, where I did not take enough time to really know myself, to really know what I needed and what I was looking for. And so I took a role that really wasn't a fit, and I did not stay there very long. I stayed longer than I would have because I was scared that if I had, just a few months on my resume or LinkedIn profile, it would be, negative to me in the future. But it was very terrible, and it was very toxic, and I was miserable. That is not joyful. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not joyful at all. And what it also does is it kills your spirit. And again, I cannot say enough, every single person in this room is made with gifts, skills, and talents that are unique to you. Sure, we may both like to read books, but what we do with that information can be totally different. How we use those skills, totally different. So no matter the competition in your own mind around jobs and roles, you are unique. We may have some of the similar education or training, but what we've brought to that is completely unique. And all of our experiences and skills make us who we are. So I highly encourage you to think a bit more about what we've talked about today and how it could help you in finding not just a job, but the job. So at this time, I will open the floor to questions, suggestions, comments. So please, if you have anything you'd like to chat on or ask me about, I am opening the floor to you. Yes, sir.
I have just a general thing, because I've heard talks very similar to this, and it's wonderful, but the reality is I have to have money coming in.
Absolutely.
So I have to work. Work is a
That's right.
word. I can find the ideal job. The reason I'm here today is because my company folded. My
Right.
previous company folded. The one before that folded. So it's not like I found a job and it didn't work out.
Right.
Things happen.
Things do happen.
The jobs of the companies either move out of town or they fold and all of that. So I can spend all this time, and I see it's a big factor. But the bottom line is I have to have money coming in.
Right.
So I have to look at my skills, and I can adjust myself. I can adapt. So yes, this may not be the ideal job, but I can.
But that's your personal
And maybe
choice.
I'll start to like it after a while and
Right.
realize that, yeah, this is nice.
You might. And that's your personal choice. Nothing I'm saying today is you must do this, please change who you are to adapt to this idea. It's just simply that I have personally discovered that knowing what brings me joy equates to my zone of genius, and that's where I'm going to do my best work. That's where I'm not going to procrastinate, because that's what I really want to do. I'm not going to put things off. I'm not going to pass it along. I'm going to give it my best 150% effort, because it is what absolutely lights me up. Okay? It takes time, effort, and energy to find that or make that happen or manifest that for yourself. So I'm not saying this is a magic bullet, but thinking about what you really want and speaking it out loud sends these vibrations into the universe. We are all connected by energy. That is researched facts. And so when you put your energy out into the world, you just never know when it's going to manifest into what you want. So regardless of whether you're religious, spiritual, or however you view that the greater higher being, higher divine, whatever it is, I think we're all here for a reason and a purpose. And unfortunately, they do not hand us a handbook on that when we are born. So it's up to us to figure that out. And you're absolutely right. You can't always create the perfect situation. But if you don't even know what the perfect situation could look like or what you really, really want, then you're more likely to find yourself in a situation that you didn't want. And sometimes for me, just knowing what I don't want helps me be more open to what the possibilities could be. I know that I do not want to be a classroom teacher ever again. Absolutely, I would do it if I really needed the money, but I would hate it, and I would be miserable, and I would probably cry every single day, and Napa Valley would just explode even more than they already have, because that is how I dealt with teaching when I was in it.
But is that,
I mean, I was not happy, and I had to figure out how to make myself happier.
but you don't think some of that might have been related to the school district,
Nope.
the principal?
Nope.
age and all
Nope.
that?
No, because that's when I knew I had to quit. It wasn't about the administration. It wasn't about changing schools. Round Rock ISD is an amazing district. And the district I was in before in another state was also great. Actually, that was a worse situation than in Round Rock. So that was actually very toxic. But no, that's how I knew I had to quit, because all those things you just mentioned, I knew that wasn't the solution. And because I pondered that a lot. I deeply studied what is it going to take to make me stay here and continue to do this in this way. And there was just really nothing. I taught 4th grade. The kids were awesome. All of that was great. But so many aspects were working against me and how I made that I just knew it had to be the end.
Not
Yes, ma'am.
really hand in hand with freedom.
No.
Because I was at school teaching too, and you're stuck there all day.
No. So at the time, I didn't realize that my deepest core value was freedom. Because I had consistently had jobs and done things that were completely opposite of that. Right? I never had freedom in a job. I didn't work remotely. I didn't, none of those things that could create a sense of freedom. And in a public school, well, any school really, but a public school, you are there at 7:05 and you do not leave until 4? That's funny. Okay, 4 is funny. 4 is Friday. Okay, and guess what time school got out? 2:45. So, although I finally got to a point where I picked one day as my late day, and I would stay there till like 6 or 7 o'clock. And then on Fridays, I would leave at 2:45 when I walked the kids to the bus. I always had my purse on my shoulder because nobody is stopping me. And I'm not going back to my room to get stopped by 10 other people. I got my pocketbook and I am headed out of here. But that's what I had to do. It was not and they pay, like a lot of jobs. You're on a contract. So there is no, you work until you die. And that's just not what I wanted. And when I figured out that was just deeply misaligned with who I was, in that scenario, I'm still a teacher. I love that part. That brings me joy. But I want to do it the way I want to do it. Because guess what? That's what makes me a joyful badass. I'm doing what I love, and I'm doing it the way I want to. And if you cannot make that happen in your work, please make it happen in your personal life. That is one way to countermand the things that are happening at work that are terrible and suck, because that's what I had to do. But my whole entire personal life could no longer compensate for the toxicity that I was experiencing within myself. It really wasn't a lot of external factors, it was me. That's how I knew it was time, because when you're in a relationship, it's not you, it's me. When really it is you, you're just saying that. In this scenario, it was totally me. And just the way the system is built. So, anything else? Any shares? Yes, ma'am.
I just think that there are lots of people who think they're going to find a good job, the job they're looking for, very quickly, and they devote a lot of energy to that, and it drags on longer than they think it will. And I think it's a very good idea to have a plan B, to have another revenue stream. Sometimes, because of discrimination of some sort, age discrimination, you've got to create another income that just goes on too long, and you've got to think in terms of what else could I do?
Right.
Or if you're in an industry that's in decline, there aren't nearly as many openings as there used to be. And so thinking about what would be another revenue stream, I think then you go to what do I like to do? What do I like to do? Can
Right.
I, even just temporarily, can I do something else like that?
Right.
I'm going to be looking for a recruiter job because that's where my money is.
Right?
But in the meantime, I'm going to see if I can freelance doing interior design. In the meantime.
Exactly, which
I'm
could
gonna do
eventually
something else.
evolve into your
Yes.
primary source of income. And
Yes.
that's a lot of the reason why I like to talk about this is because it's, like I said, it's not a magic solution for anything, but knowing who you are and what you want and what you're made of is just tremendous information to take with you so that you can make decisions that are the best for you. Because here I am taking jobs that I really didn't have any business, qualified, yes. Capable, yes. Did I really want to do that? Sometimes the answer was no. I worked in a job I hated for 6 years. It was terrible. But that's what I thought I was supposed to do. We get trapped in some of these societal ideas of what we're supposed to do. Right? And I think, at least for me, I can only speak from my own experience in that I was in a whole industry that I should never have even been in. Yes, sir.
I think a lot of people don't pay attention to their intuition when they go in and begin to research for reviews. Their intuition may be telling them, no, this is a bad thing, and they tend to fall into that over and over and over until they finally listen to themselves and say, that's not what I want to do.
Exactly. Intuition is really huge. I've been in interviews when I was, and I'll say in my entrepreneurial journey, I have been an entrepreneur, freaked out, took a job, knew that wasn't for me, went back to being an entrepreneur, had another freak out, and took a job, and that was not for me either. And so now I am back to straight on entrepreneur only. I cannot work for other people. I'm not a good employee because I will push back against you on and on and on because I'm kind of rebellious. And yet again, another reason why corporate America, I've been in it and it doesn't necessarily work for me. But intuition is super important. So I've been in many interviews where I'm in the interview and in the middle of it almost, I'm just like, this is not for me. There's no amount of money, there's no amount of anything they could offer me that would make me want to be here. I just know it. I just know that, the people in front of me are not who I want to be with. You just know, right? You hear words, you see body language, you're like, mm-mm. Or go to their office, you're like, no, this is not for me. This is not what I want. I have literally gone home, sent the thank you email that was a no thank you email.
Yeah.
I don't even want you to offer this to me. I don't know if I'm your best qualified candidate, but on the assumption that I am, I'm not taking this job. So I don't even want to waste your time. So I just go home and write a no thank you email instead of a thank you email. But yeah, there's been a couple times I almost walked out. I almost got up and walked out. But I just did not want to be that girl.
You know what Kathy said? Last time I was laid off 10 years ago, I had a degree in art education. I fell into the IT industry. I worked at a soul-sucking job for 17 years. And when I got laid off, didn't miss a step. I started Craigslist, flyers, did my own private art teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I built up to 20 students, 12 classes, and I survived and worked 10 hours doing consulting work for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because art is my joy.
Of course.
And helping other people.
Right, joy and helping. That's
Sometimes I think if you have passion and belief, that's what you need to be successful.
passion and belief. I think I like those two thoughts. Passion for what you're doing and belief in the ability that you can do it.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So, how do you handle a situation when your passion, what brings you joy, is not something you're good at? And you're not qualified.
That's a hobby, friend. That's a hobby. That's a hobby.
Right, what you're good at is not.
And what you're good at does not bring you joy. I would encourage you to go deeper around that because think more, go broader about what you're good at. My initial response is thinking you're thinking too small. You're putting yourself in too small of a box. Because I'm good at things that I hate.
Yes.
I'm good at things I hate, but I'm good at things I love. So it really does take a little work to say, oh, I am really good at that, but I don't like it.
Yes.
You know, I'm honestly really, really, really good at building relationships with parents. Like as a teacher, I'm really freaking good at that. I am. But I don't love it at all. It's just part of the deal, right? I just got to do it. But I'm not good at it. I am good at it, but I don't like it. Yet another reason why I don't do that anymore. You're better at more things than I bet you think you are.
Well, kind of just to follow up with that, as a hypothetical, right, because you've worked in the public education system, if, for instance, what you have found or is that your passion was for kind of more a managerial position, for instance, a principal, right?
Right.
And so you have to have years' experience working as a teacher to be able to apply for that position.
Correct.
If you find to not enjoy that work experience, how do you bridge that?
How do you bridge the gap between what? Ask me that again in that way. How do you bridge the gap between
What you want to be doing and how to get there, which you do not enjoy.
That is probably a topic for another day because that is a thought-provoking one and I love it and I want to make sure I have your contact information because I want to think on that. That is a really thought-provoking question. How do you bridge the gap between what you want and what you're doing? Okay, I'm going to think on that. I'm going to really think on that. And I'm in a community with other people who teach about joy, so that may be a really good question for my joy group. I'm a group of facilitators. We're 7 licensed facilitators on a specific program called the Joy Money Matrix. So it's like a really detailed process. You go dig really deep into what brings you joy, and then you decide what you're going to do with all the things that don't bring you joy. Like, I found out I don't like to do a few things in my business, so I hired a VA. There's a few things that I don't like to do that I don't actually need to do. They're not really moving me forward in any way, so I just got rid of those. Other things are necessary. You can't let them go. They have to be done. You might hate it, but you have to figure out how to make it work. So I have another workshop on that called Ritual and Reward, where you take those things that you hate and you figure out how to make yourself like it a little more. And that could be part of what you're talking about. How do you bridge from stuff I don't particularly enjoy to get to what I do enjoy? There's some things you can do around that, but I really love that question, and I'm going to think on that. So, yes, I'm not just saying that everything has to be joyful. Obviously, everything in my life is not joyful, but I'm looking for it. I want it. I'm intentional with it. I'm purposeful. So I meet with it a lot more frequently than I would if I was not looking for it. Because I also teach a workshop on limiting beliefs, and your brain has I'm just going to throw this out there, a reticular activating system. All brains have a reticular activating system. This is the brain's filter. So all the sensory information that we receive as we go through our lives, daily and whatnot, it's filtered by this reticular activating system. And so your brain is constantly looking to validate your thoughts. Like, this is neuroscience. Always looking to validate your thoughts. So have you ever noticed when you're, like I noticed when my husband told me I should get an Apple Watch. He works at Apple, obviously, so that's why he wants me to have all these things. I thought that was stupid and I didn't need a watch. So I just kept pushing it off, pushing it off, pushing it off. Well, I finally say, okay, I'll get the watch. Everywhere I went, everybody had the watch on. I had never noticed it before. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't interested. I didn't care. But as soon as I got it, it's like I saw them everywhere. That was my brain validating my purchase. My brain was looking around saying, well, you weren't too keen on this. Now you're happy about it. Let me help you prove that you should have been happy about it. She has one, she has one, he has one. Oh, look, that lady's wearing an Apple Watch. See, you were smart. You bought something that you really needed. All of that happens too with our own thoughts. So if you're just so that you know, your brain is always searching to validate your thoughts. It is searching all the sensory information. Everything you take in, your brain is filtering it to back up your thoughts. So if your thoughts are negative, your brain is going to find the validation for that. If your thoughts are positive, your brain will find the validation for that. So, when you say, oh my God, this job, I'm never going to get this. Yeah, well, you're never going to get this. because your brain is going to look for all the ways to prevent it from happening for you. It's kind of the law of attraction, but it's really not this, probably maybe connected with underlying concepts, but yes, sir.
One comment, one thing I've learned is that I believe that what turns people on, I believe that evolves the older you get. And there's things that I really love doing that now I can do in my sleep, but I hate it because it's too easy, it's too
It's so challenging.
yeah.
Right.
So
And
I think that evolves.
I agree with you completely. So in case you couldn't hear it, he's saying that we evolve over, like the things that we like, the things we enjoy, the things we're good at, they evolve. And we may start out being really, really good at something and then ultimately realizing that even though we're good at it, we don't really want to do it. And we may not ever know that we were good at something else until we try it. Right? So I'm big about taking a risk, jumping out, trying something different. I mean, as long as I'm not going to die, I think I'll be okay.
I think another thing, I don't know exactly what Benjamin's, what he loves to do and what he's not good at, but let's just say hypothetically that what you love to do and you're not good at is opera singing. You
Okay.
sound great in the shower. You know,
Shower, car,
but-
stick to it.
But you kind of know
Yeah.
you're never going to be an opera singer. What you are vocationally, occupationally, is you're a programmer.
Right.
But you're not really happy about it. But let's say that you find, is there anything you can do about what you don't like that can get you a step closer
Right.
to what you do like? Like you get a development job with an opera company and you're handling their database or whatever.
Right.
So you can use what you don't like to get a step closer to what you do like, and then maybe once you're in that new industry or you're in that world, you can eventually find a niche where there's a way that you can be useful to the opera company using the skill that you're not real crazy about, but now you're happier because you're closer to the thing you love.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Yeah, those auxiliary organizations, because I love dancing and I love karaoke. Karaoke brings me a bunch of joy, y'all. I love doing karaoke. You should hear Paul Revere from the Beastie Boys for me. You would be floored. No one is ever going to pay me to do that, though, and they will be glad they're in a bar, right? Because I'm not that great. But I don't care because it's fun and it brings me joy. But I would never attempt to make a business based on it because nobody is. They're going to pay. Well, I don't know. They'll pay me not to sing. I could work. Tips for not singing.